Hello, everyone, and welcome to a brand new episode of Set Lusting Bruce, your podcast all about Bruce Springsteen, his music, and mostly his fans. I am your host, Jesse Jackson. We are getting off the Bruce train, though I'm sure he will come up, as he often does. And we are talking to my new friend, Jeff, who has a fascinating podcast that I was checking out, and I now have guest envy. Jeff, there are so many people you have talked to that I'm like, oh my goodness, I would love to talk to them. But anyway, welcome to Set Lusting Bruce.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. So it's great to be here. I do have some Bruce stuff. I know Bruce isn't probably the top of my list, but I do love some Bruce Springsteen. I do have some stories I'm looking forward to talk to you about. So it's all good. So let's
Very
do it.
nice. Sounds good. I always like to start at the beginning. So tell us about where you grew up and what kind of music was your family listening to when you were younger?
So that is a great question. So I my parents listened to Neil Diamond, Barbara Streisand. There was a point where we had Kiss. Now I know that doesn't match at all because it's a tangent story where my parents knew somebody who knew what Kiss looked like without the makeup. Now I know hearing that today, but there was a point in the world where that was quite a big deal. and
Yes.
and she knew those people. We never saw them, but she did give us on 8-track. Google it if you don't know what that is. I don't remember which Kiss album it was where they all put out their own album
Yeah,
together, you know. And that was probably the only tangent there. Neil Diamond, and I got
sure.
to tell you, to this day, because I became a vinyl collector and I
Okay.
got some good Bruce on vinyl. And
Nice.
but to this day, any time I find a Barbara album, I have almost every Neil Diamond album on vinyl, literal vinyl. I'll buy them. I don't necessarily listen to them, Neil Diamond maybe,
Yeah.
but there's something about just finding the past and just grabbing it, especially because it's only $2 or something
Yeah.
usually. Yeah.
So that's fun that they did. I graduated high school in 77, so I'm older than dirt. But I went through a phase when I was in high school where Kiss was the coolest thing ever. And in 21, after the pandemic, that was one of the first concerts I went to. Kiss, we had bought tickets for me and a bunch of my buddies before the pandemic had hit. And so it got delayed. And the 17-year-old Jesse was thrilled to be at a Kiss concert. And it was a lot of fun. It brought back all the I don't know if it was a good show or not for a hardcore Kiss fan, but for a guy who listened to it in high school, they played everything I wanted to hear.
That's awesome. My first, so I have two, I think everyone has two first
Right.
concerts, and those are the one you saw with your parents,
Sure.
and then the one you saw by yourself or with your friends.
Right.
And probably with your friends, but I meant without your parents. I just wandered into a concert by myself. But so Barry Manilow is my first concert with my
Okay.
parents. Great
Okay.
concert, great
Yes.
showman,
Yes.
the Manilow. And the Monkees 20th anniversary reunion was, and I'm obsessed with the Monkees as well.
Mm.
I've driven out of state to see like Mike and Mickey perform
Yeah.
together before Mickey Dolenz died. That was pre-pandemic. And I've seen Mike Nesmith solo. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's the Monkees. I love the Monkees. Always have loved the Monkees as well.
I'll tell that story. So had bought the tickets for Michael Nesmith and Mickey Dolenz before the pandemic. It got delayed and delayed. And so after the pandemic, they were at a small theater in Grand Prairie here in Dallas. It's a nice size theater. And I went and it was a great show. And Michael Nesmith was you could he would sit on a stool when he wasn't singing, and he walked in with a
Right.
cane. He told the great story that he had written a song, said, I think this would be a good monkey song. They go, no, it's not a monkey song. And he goes, but a monkey wrote it, so how could it not be a monkey song? And it was the different drum, right, that went to Linda Ronstadt. And that was in the end of 23, maybe 22, but he died a few months afterwards. And
So
I
you
was,
saw him at the end there. Yeah.
yeah, and it, it made me very happy because there's like this summer when Jimmy Buffett died, I told the story that when Linda was pregnant way back in 89, that's my wife, we had tickets to see Jimmy and we didn't go because she was too sick. And then every year, well, we're busy or the kids got something going on with always next summer. And then when he died, I went, shit, there won't be another summer. And I missed it. So I was happy I got to see them. And it brought back a lot of fun memories because I remember watching the original show.
I have the same story about missing out, but Tom
Yeah.
Petty.
Yeah.
So I was supposed to see, there was some tickets that I got and they were a make good for
Mhm.
something and ended up being Tom Petty. I couldn't go, give it to my friend Scott. He goes, he gets, it's like bad seats though. They were bad, they were blocked. So we end up
Yeah.
seeing Don Henley, which then I fell in love with Don Henley solo.
Yeah.
Amazing. But then when they were coming to the outdoor theater, and it was like $100 a ticket, and I was fine with that, but the couple we were gonna go with wasn't, and so I'm like, all right, well, I'll see him next time, and
Yeah.
there wasn't the next time, and for I'm still a little bit, but like obsessed with became obsessed with Tom Petty, like more,
Yeah.
and I wasn't even before, but
Right.
like the fact that I missed out on hearing him and seeing him live, rather, I just the Tom Petty channel was nonstop, like
Right.
nonstop, like it replaced the Beatles. Like I was really into, had been listening to the Beatles nonstop, and then all I could listen to was Tom Petty
Hmm.
nonstop, just because I felt so bad that I had missed him. So
Yeah. You talked about seeing the Monkees. Is there a road to Damascus moment where you discovered your own band or your own music and broke away from what your parents liked?
I don't think the Monkees were them. I think
Right.
Billy Joel, Elton John were like always my favorites. Like Billy Joel specific. Billy
Yeah.
Joel would I'd put above that. Later, Elton John came
Yeah.
to a close second, even more. I think I really got into, especially in college, like more 60s music, became obsessed with Crosby, Stills, Nash Young, which I saw
Right.
in concert twice because they opened up in Detroit when they did the reunion tours.
Yeah.
But I don't remember my parents listening to that music. I remember my dad talking about going to a Beatles concert, like he in
Yeah.
Cleveland, and
Right.
Simon and Garfunkel. But I don't even know. Maybe I saw one concert other than that
Yeah.
Barry Manilow concert. Maybe
Yeah.
Elton John later in life with my dad.
Yeah.
I don't even remember. And so I think that music was, I was really into Weird Al as a young kid too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And Bruce admittedly was someone who I liked, but like Born in the USA, it's funny because I think, and you can tell me if I'm right about this, depending on when you experience Born in the USA is dependent on how much you would like that as part of his catalog. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, I think so. And I think too many hardcore fans tend to play down that album without with without the remembrance that this was the gateway album for a lot of Bruce Springsteen fans. That, you know, certainly Born to Run and Darkness hold special place in hardcore fans. The River, Little Steven talks about, was they got Hungry Heart on the radio. The River was their first successful album, and that led them to, he said, once you got on the radio, that's when girls would come to the show. And if girls come to the show, guys will come to the show. But Born in the USA is what shot him to fame. And there's a discussion we have with our friends that there's a blues version of Born in the USA that he does when he's on Broadway. And the discussion was, if he had not done, there was discussion about putting Born in the USA on the album Nebraska, which came out before Born in the USA. And if you hadn't had that Born in the USA rock anthem, would the album has been as successful, and would his career been Neil Young? Which is nothing to sneeze at, right? Just to really, but would that have been that? It's an interesting discussion. But anyway, so Born in the USA, your feelings on it?
I discovered Bruce. I discovered Bruce.
Yeah,
That was my big Bruce awakening, was
sure.
Born in the USA. So I loved that. One of my memories, not negative memories of my dad, was that he like passed on Bruce Springsteen tickets for me. And this is when Bruce would play for 12 hours. You know what
Yeah,
I mean?
exactly. Yeah.
And I was like, because I was so into Bruce. So Born in the USA, like all those songs, like there's so many. Cover Me, like I can't remember all of them. But I think it's interesting, like anytime, and they played Born in the USA at DNC the other day
Yeah.
during the convention. It's like, guys, it only sounds like a positive
Right.
song.
Yes.
It's actually a protest song. It's not
Yes.
even, and I think that I've heard him do it. I think when did see him in concert, and I can't honestly remember if I saw him once or twice. I know I at least saw him during The Rising,
Okay.
which was a very powerful album, and I would listen to that nonstop and talk about like tapping into the moment
Yeah.
and coming up with a masterpiece.
And we're
But
recording this on 9/12,
oh
right?
yeah,
So yeah, so it's always 9/11, that feeling, right, of that. And you're right, it really was, even though the album didn't start out to be about the 9/11, there is that themes that's explored in it.
but like Born in the USA, Downbound Train, Cover Me, I'm on Fire, I'm Going Down, Bobby Jean, No Surrender. Like to me, these are all so great. I just
Yeah,
love every one of these songs. And probably Born in the USA is my least favorite song on
right.
the album. But I did like, when I saw him in concert, he played a very slow version of it. And
Yeah,
that version is like great. If you can ever hear that, the alternative
yeah,
versions of that aren't as
yeah,
rocking, those are tremendous. But yeah, I love it, because I only bring it up because like I later in life I had a hardcore fan who wasn't even probably born when Born in the USA came, right? So part
yeah,
of the back catalog discovery of his life, and he was like, I hate Born. You know, it was just like it was not held in high regard. And I was
right.
like, really, I love it, but I experienced it real time as well.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's Courtney.
there we go. Yeah. There is a book out that came out last year called Deliver Me from Nowhere: The Making of Nebraska. And Warren Zane is the writer. And it's a book that actually, the thought is that's going to be basis of the movie that they're going to film with the guy from The Bear. And I should learn his name because I love that actor. He was great in The Iron Claw and other stuff. But the premise of the book is Bruce did The River, incredibly successful. Skipped one album. He did Born in the USA, and he did Nebraska first. And don't know how big of a fan you are or what, but Nebraska was basically recorded on a cassette tape, right? It was supposed to be a demo, and they ended up releasing the demos. And the whole book is, why did he have to take a step back before he took the step forward? And there's a PBS documentary special on that's showing right now as we're recording, with Warren Zane reading things from his book, and like Emmylou Harris and Lucinda Williams are singing songs from Nebraska. And he said, this is Warren said, that when he interviewed Bruce said, the only regret I have is there was that blues version of Born in the USA, and then there was the rocking version of Born in the USA. And if I had to do it over, I would have put them both. I would have put the blues version on Nebraska, and I would have put the rocking one on Born in the USA. And that way they both would have been out. to tie those two albums together. So,
Got it. Got it.
yeah, I don't know if you've ever watched on Netflix his Springsteen on Broadway.
I've seen some of it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So he does a version of he does that blues version on there as he was talking about why he didn't go to Vietnam and how that felt. If I could talk to me the secret origins of the podcast, like I said, it is a who's who of people from my childhood and other people's childhood that you just go, oh yeah, that guy, oh guy, that gal. So how did this start, Jeff?
It's a great question. You can't see, your viewers can't see behind me, but I
Yeah,
have a wall of walls of 8x10s. And so one of the things that I always thoroughly enjoyed was going to Comic Cons and meeting the folks at the Comic Cons, which
sure.
admittedly are in their B and C
Right.
career. And when I started doing my podcast, it was actually originally, I was really big on Twitter. I had a big following. I was verified. I was going to do this whole social media podcast. I was going to be called Viral Intentions because I would go viral a lot on Twitter, and I was in every publication you could think of.
Yeah,
And plus it was a play on the movie Cruel Intentions. I thought that was
right.
cute. I had everything ready to go, and then I just got lazy and I never did it. Yeah. So that was 2017. So flash forward 2020, and you have flash forward 2020, and you have the pandemic, and so everyone has more time on their hands. So I'm like, oh, so I got everything out of the box. I had my friend come over, who was a sound engineer, because I have one of these janky soundboards. He put it all together for me. And I realized, oh my God, it's March 2020. I can't launch a podcast called Viral Intentions. Right. It's the pandemic. It's people are dying. And
Right.
but I have everything ready to go. So I changed the podcast completely, pivoted, as they say. And I originally it was just started interviewing people. I had no necessary intention because I didn't even know. And then I met somebody who introduced me to a couple people who were famous. And I was like, oh, this is interesting. And then you start to slowly understand you can, if you have a podcast and you ask someone to talk to on the podcast, they'll talk to you on the podcast. If you just randomly called up a stranger and said, you want to hang for an hour? They would think you're weird and they might call the police. But if you go, hey, I got a podcast, that's an open invitation to someone to spend time with you. So did that and talked to some people. Larry Hankin, Bruce Valanche were some of the early ones. And then I realized I reached out to this woman, Judy Carter. She's an author. She had written a book because my early philosophy was I want to talk to people that made a difference in things that I enjoyed. And she had written a book called The Comedy Bible. And I really loved that because I used that when I was starting stand-up comedy. And she's, oh, Bruce Valanche. It's good enough for Bruce Valanche. And then I was like, oh, that's interesting. So if you start to have certain people,
Yeah.
then it starts to help you. So you just got to get those first few. And I just had that. And so then I just started reaching out and it's people would say yes. And then I had some people, sometimes these relationships are you're through a publicist, you get on the phone with
Yeah.
them, you're never going to hear from this person. That's
Yeah.
it. You got the hour, you're done. And sometimes you can connect with them and they'll refer people to you. They go, oh, my friends would love to be on your podcast. I really enjoyed this. Why don't you give this person a call? So then
Right.
there's a bunch of people that you start to get from that.
Yeah.
And my favorite get
Yeah.
is I'm sure you're familiar with The Simpsons.
Sure.
And so Al Jean is the executive director of the showrunner for The Simpsons for the past 30 plus years.
Right.
So Al Jean grew up in the same city as me,
Oh, nice.
Farmington Hills, Michigan. And Al Jean, his family had a hardware store called Jean's Hardware. And my dad and I would go there all the time. That's where my dad went. This was like in the era of before your Home Depots, where
Right.
you had the family hardware stores. So I sent this person an email and I said, hey, Al and I are from the same exact city. We grew up in the same city. We don't know each other, but my dad and I would spend our weekends at Gene's Hardware.
Yeah.
Al Gene, which is not normal. Normally,
No.
the publicist will email you back and arrange it and then all that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. Al Gene emails me, hey, any former customer of Gene's Hardware, I am more than happy to do your podcast. I'm like, that is the greatest. And here's the other thing: Elgene had to reschedule, and Elgene rescheduled. Like the guy running, was like, he didn't have his
Yeah.
people do it. I just thought he was so cool. It was just really nice. Then I ended up having someone saw that and they're like, oh, you should get Mike Reese. He was the Al
Yeah.
Jean's writing partner and was on The Simpsons for a long time.
Yeah.
And so stuff like that, just little. Most of it is like how you just described it earlier, which is you described it as people that you grew up with. That's what I targeted. I'm like, I watched Happy Days. I reached out to the people from Happy Days. I have not been able to get Vicky on. She's rejected me twice. I don't know why, but I had Isaac over and Doc. Same thing with the Love Boat. No, that was Happy Days. I'm sorry, I was mixing Happy Day. I meant the Love Boat. I couldn't get Vicky from the Love Boat.
Yeah.
Happy Days, I've been rejected by very lovingly rejected by Henry Winkler's people a few times. But I had Mrs. Cunningham. I had Potsy, Ralph Mouth. So it's fun. It's
Yeah.
cool. It's yeah.
No, I thought it was great. I've had Mike Scully on, who is a writer for The Simpsons, because he's a huge Springsteen fan, and that was fun. And I would love to get Hank Azaria because right now he's touring, doing a
Oh,
Bruce
it's
Springsteen
Springsteen,
cover.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
cover.
yeah.
And it's just it would be just fun to have them talking about their musical fandom to talk about because it it's interesting sometimes you get them. Was Elena Douglas the one about the book about Connecticut?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, she's not talking anything about her career. She's talking about her book, which was fascinating.
Spoiler, not to ruin it for you. It
Yeah,
was during the strike, so she
yeah.
couldn't.
Oh, okay. There we go.
But I
How
gotta tell
fun.
you, but I still think, it was still there was so much to talk about.
Yeah,
Yeah, it would have been
yeah,
unfair to cut that book off.
yeah.
Yeah.
What surprised you about doing the podcast?
What surprised me about the podcast? For me personally, was the people would how many people would say yes, and
Yeah,
as it grew, people would come on and go, oh, you've had so many of my friends on the show, stuff like that. From the literal podcasting point of view,
yeah,
I think you realize when you do a podcast, I'm sure you know this too, it's the barrier to entry is so low to get in, and people
right.
don't understand how hard it is to then keep that going. So like
Yeah,
when they say pod fade, the average podcast dies after 7 episodes, and honestly, they should clear up Apple. There's so many
yeah,
good names for podcasts that have one
yeah,
episode out there that just stuck because they quit because they don't realize it's like you got to do the research. You film it, you edit it, you put it out again, rinse, wash, repeat. And so you put out a 45-minute episode that represents hours. And so,
yeah, it does.
you do that weekly and it adds up. It's a lot of time. I think people think it's just so easy, and it's not hard. Don't get me wrong. If you're
Yeah,
willing to commit the time, but
yeah.
you have to be willing to commit the time.
And what I tell people is that the yeah, I would love to get thousands of downloads, and I would love to have Tom Hanks or someone who's a huge Springsteen fan join. But there is a joy talking to music fans and not just Springsteen fans. I've had people from Van Morrison to Aretha Franklin, just the people that adore music, joining me from all over the world. And I tell people if you're comfortable having the conversation that if no one listens, but you still had fun, then do the podcast, right? Because I think that should be the motivation, the joy is I like talking to Jeff and hearing his stories about loving Born in the USA or getting to talk Happy Days.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. I totally get it. I want to brag about a couple of my
Please, that's what
Bruce
I was going to ask
Springsteen
you.
things.
Yes,
We
please.
used to have this community on Twitter called hashtag Roundup, and we would do hashtag games. And
Yeah,
so the running joke was anytime there would be a song, replace the word, make it
right.
about whatever. I would always do Born to Run
Okay,
because it just worked because it Born to, and you could put anything in there.
sure.
And it just became a running joke because that's always what I would do. And it wasn't because it wasn't like it was just because it was mindless, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
So when they started creating these bots, you could create bots on Twitter. If you go to x.com/ born to run bot, one word, born to run
okay.
bot, I created a born to run bot that would retweet any reference to Born to Run. And I hadn't looked at it in years, and it auto shut off because whatever got killed. So it looks like November 8th, 2022 was the last time it
Okay.
retweeted anything because I think Elon shut all that off. But it had retweeted 103,000 tweets
About
referencing
Born to
Born
Run.
to Run. Yeah. And it's funny because it's like it has 853 followers. All it does is run. And I only ever followed Bruce Springsteen.
That is awesome.
Yeah. It was just funny. I was like, but yeah, it's just there's something about that song. It's such a great song too.
Yeah,
So
there is a podcast, Strong Song podcast, I think, Strong Song, that where the guy is a musician, he breaks down songs, and he just did Born to Run. And I thought I loved the song, but hearing him, yeah, it's Strong Songs, a podcast about music, and a guy named Kirk Hamilton, and he broke down Born to Run, and I was like, oh, wow. It was like I thought I loved the song, but hearing him break down everything that Bruce is doing made it like even more fantastic. So, what are you enjoying music wise now?
nowadays, what do I
Yeah.
listen to? I by osmosis, I listen to a lot of Taylor Swift.
Okay.
Because my wife and kids are obsessed with Taylor Swift, so I generally have to. I've always been though more retro. So
Okay.
my music journey right now is I go to used vinyls record stores, I
Sure.
go to estate sales and buy albums that I grew up with or ones during that time frame and time period and then just start listening to those straight through and been re-enjoying the kind of experience that an album takes you through versus the disjointed kind of way digital has become where you're not really wrapped around an album. It's just single individual digital downloads and there isn't like necessarily that story you can get behind and all that. I will say though that in watching my kids and stuff with Taylor Swift, it is very interesting to watch and they know and if you watch any like clips from like the Eras tour or anything like that, I I'm hard pressed to find a fan base that big that knows every word to literally every song she's ever done. Like I heard someone saying, "Oh, she doesn't have hits or whatever." I don't know. It's almost like it's a new thing. It's
Yeah.
she these fans, the Swifties, know everything and they know everything about her and it's really interesting. It's an interesting phenomenon in a way. It's not like she's just popular. It's the closest I think we have to like Beatlemania than
Yeah.
in a long time.
Well, a couple of years ago, I had Devin and Gab join me, and they do Tay to Z, a Taylor Swift podcast. And Gab was also a huge Springsteen fan. So she was talking about, and she talked about both. And I've seen interviews with Bruce talking about his daughter is a huge fan. And Taylor Swift was on Ellen, I think, that telling the story that Bruce brought Jessica and a couple of her friends to the show, and They went in either after or before the show, and she was telling him how much she loved Dancing in the Dark, and he took her guitar and played Dancing in the Dark a little bit for her and then signed her guitar. And yeah, I think it it is giving her short shift to say that she isn't incredibly talented, because she is, and she and millions of people following her music that make people happy, and there's just something great about that.
Agreed. Agreed. I'm trying to think. Stop going to concerts. The last concert I went to was a Dave Matthews concert.
Okay.
That's We went with some friends. We sat on the lawn. Last time I'm sitting on the lawn.
Right.
I'm a big boy now. I gotta pay for real tickets.
Yeah. My
I
back
did
can't keep my
yeah.
back cannot handle the not having the support.
I I gotta say it's 3.5 hours and I didn't know one song.
Yeah.
I didn't realize he was like Grateful Deadish now, where
Yeah.
it's like people pay attention to it. I realized the only song I did know was it was a Led Zeppelin cover. But yeah, I used to love going with my friend Aaron Rubin, who in college introduced us all to Crosby, Stills, and Nash, and then
Right.
Crosby, Stills, Nash Young. And so I don't even know how many times I've seen whatever version of those. One of the greatest concerts I ever saw was a front row at a small venue in Grand Rapids, Michigan. It was just Graham Nash and David Crosby. I'd
Yeah.
never been a fan of the song Almost Cut My Hair, but when I heard him from 3 feet away do it live, pretty much a cappella,
Yeah.
it was probably one of the greatest moments. I was like, you hear certain things sometimes, it can change you. And it was like, oh, wow, that was amazing. The only other time I felt like that was hearing Bob Seger do Turn the Page live.
Yeah.
Like, to me, that was just a moment as well. I
Yeah.
love that so much. Love that. So
What do you think about Crosby, Stills, Nash Young, and then what about their music spoke to you so much? Why do you think that has been something that you've been so connected to?
I don't know. I think it's just I just enjoy it. There's something
Yeah.
about the 60s music that
Yeah.
just my ears enjoy listening to it. I'm not one that kind of falls into the lyrics and they spoke to me, that kind of,
Yeah.
it's just I enjoy it. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And I gotta say, when you see them with Young, it's a different band. It's almost like just it was there's so much better with Young, like at least
Yeah.
live.
Right.
And it just adds like a whole different wow factor to it. Like I never
That's
was a big Joe Walsh fan
right.
until I wasn't not a fan. I shouldn't say that. I just
Right.
mean and then when I saw the Eagles live and
Yeah.
Joe Walsh was you're watching him and you're like you just can't help but be like, "Oh my god.
Yeah.
The energy from this guy is insanely amazing. Like taking the whole experience to another level type."
Yeah.
And even amongst all those other great people. And it's things like that, like when you just
Yeah.
kind of just feel it.
I'll put you on the spot and we'll cut this out if you don't have an answer, but is there, as you're picking up vinyl, is there an album that you've picked up and rediscovered? Wow, this is really good.
I well, I will say that my favorite album is still my favorite album. How about if
Okay.
I and
Okay.
that is Captain Fantastic and the Dirt Brown Band by
Okay.
Elton John and Bernie Taupin. I
Yeah.
have always been obsessed with that album. And I'm not like overly obsessed with a lot. I'll play albums and stuff like that. But that particular album, it talks about their creative process and stuff like that. And I would listen to it while I would do things in a creative nature. And it was to me like this guidepost. It was like
Yeah.
really good and enjoyable. And of any album that's ever spoken to me or helped me or I could put me in a mindset, that is the album that has done it many times. I answer with that one because I rediscovered it. I hadn't listened to it in a long time. And then I bought it on vinyl. Not sure I ever had it on vinyl. It's like I came in more cassette era. uh,
Right.
uh, After 8-track with more cassettes and then CDs and that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. But that I think is my favorite vinyl of all time. And then the other one actually is Love Yellow Brick Road, Goodbye Yellow Brick Road. I
Yeah.
got to listen to that. Sometimes listening to some of these things, like listening to Bob Seger on an album was great. Things just sound better on vinyl. They just
Yeah.
do. Even if they don't, to me they do.
Yeah. There, that feeling of, I was not able to see the Eagles before Glenn Fry passed, but I went on this a couple of years ago. They were doing the Hotel California tour where they played Hotel California in a row, and it was, I agree with you, it was good to see Walsh, and it was seeing, they had Glenn Fry's son singing along with, I'm drawing a blank on,
Was Vince Gill with
yeah,
them?
Vince Gill, yeah, who has just an amazing voice. And as a child of the 70s, I just, I also loved Elton John, and I loved Billy Joel in the 80s, and hearing the Eagles live once again was just something pretty special for me. Yeah.
The the Eagles live album, the double album they had,
Yeah.
was I listened to that a lot. And when they had their reunion with on MTV, Hell
Yeah.
Freezes Over, that was just so incredible to me as well.
Yeah.
I don't know that I ever saw Don Henley solo a couple times before the Big Eagle reunion, and I don't think I ever saw Glenn Fry.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, his son was really good. His son was it was nice, and we saw
Well,
him in Michigan, and they're from Michigan. That was fun.
my first Bruce show was the Rising tour, and he was in Dallas. And when they came out for the encore, Don Henley, who was living at Dallas at the time, came out and they did I Fought the Law together. And that was cool. That was really cool.
That's awesome. That's really nice.
Yeah, that's nice. Have you had many musical guests on the podcast? It appears a lot of it is TV and pop culture, but have you had a couple of musical guests?
I've had one, Mark Varner,
Hmm.
lead singer of Grand Funk Railroad, or the original lead singer of Grand Funk Railroad.
Nice.
It's not that it would be exciting to have.
Yeah,
It's I just I admittedly don't have a backlog in my brain of
right,
stuff to talk about songs the way I understand and can ask questions about TV or movies.
right.
I don't know why that is. Mark Farner from Grand Funk Railroad, that band story is insane in itself. There was plenty to talk to
Yeah, I
about.
imagine.
But I'm trying to think if I had maybe one other. Oh, John Billings,
Mm,
bass player from the Monkees.
yeah,
God, he's one of my favorite conversations. We just
I
hit it
bet.
off. We just hit it off. We stayed buddies. And my biggest regret.
Yes, tell
So
me.
John Billings is we hit it off. We have a great time, really fun time on the show. And Mickey he plays for Mickey Dolenz now. And so they were coming to Detroit and I had to leave. They were coming like on
Hmm.
Saturday, and I had to leave. And I was leaving Friday for London to go visit my daughter. And I was like, it would have got me backstage. It would have been like an
Oh man.
amazing experience.
Yeah. Who are you still on your wish list of people that you want to have on the podcast, Jeff?
I would love to have, I mean, Spielberg would be awesome, but my number one bucket list is probably Henry Winkler.
Yeah.
Um, and then I I need the fonts. I need to get the fonts.
Yeah.
I'd have to look at my list of people that
Hmm.
rejected me. But yeah, the long list of rejection is it's not always rejection in all fairness. A lot of times it's just don't hear. But
Yeah. You're getting further than I am because it sounds like you have a few connections. A lot of mine are going to websites and social media and trying to, hey, pick me. So good for you. That sounds nice.
is that how you find the musicians and stuff like that?
Yes, mostly. Yeah. And then what's really nice is a lot of fans recommend other fans that'll come and say, hey, you've seen Bruce 20 times, you've seen Bruce 100 times, you should join them. And I get a little pushback, Jeff, of saying, I don't have an interesting story. And I go, everyone's got a story. Just everyone's got a story about why they discovered and what music has meant to them. And so we talk about from there. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's really cool. I know somebody who does a Springsteen podcast. I'll introduce you after.
Okay. That sounds great. I'd love it. So, what's next for you creatively? What have you not been able to do that you want to do?
Done to whatever level of semi
Okay.
success. A lot of my focus is on my startup that I have called Stand Up Stampede Social, which
Hmm.
is my background's in digital and marketing. And so we built a platform for creators to be able to leverage social platforms, Instagram and Facebook right now, and then soon YouTube, to be able to drive traffic to your show, to a
Okay.
registration form. And so we built a real robust platform. And so my days I spend doing that when I'm not reading a book and
Mhm.
trying to prep for an interview or that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I it's always interesting when you're preparing for an interview. It's trying to find the thing that is going to make it different than everyone else's. Because like you
Yeah.
said, I talked to a lot of people from the 60s and 70s. So
Right.
admittedly, they've done a few interviews. And so it's trying to dive in and find the little nooks and crannies that maybe they haven't done. One of the things I learned about podcasting is the best prep is to listen to them on other shows and
Yes.
hear what they're talking about. Because sometimes they'll give clues to things they would have talked about if that host had been aware of it. And those could be like, for example, I was talking to Fred Grandy, Gopher,
Hmm.
and I was listening to him talk to somebody, and it was like, he was really fond of the show he did called Monster Squad. They kind of glossed over it. So I'm like, oh, there's my in.
Yeah.
I'll go watch Monster Squad. I'll come fully prepared with Monster Squad. And so it adds a little bit of a different thing to it. So it's just things like that. So it's fun to find out, you know, what's
So
going.
I was listening to sports talk radio here in Dallas, and there is a guy named Norm Hitzges who's been doing this forever, Texas Hall of Famer, Radio Hall of Famer. And he said once casually that if you talk to Nolan Ryan about his 7 no-hitters, you will get polite answers and he'll want to move on. If you ask him about the 2 home runs he hits, he will talk your ear off. And I always took that to say, what can I ask they don't normally get asked about, right? Like you talked about like the Monster Squad, or what is this, the topic that you wouldn't, that they don't often get a chance to share about. And sometimes you can find it and sometimes you can't, right? But that's always a good thing to do. So yeah, it, if you can find that key, it does make it a lot of difference, doesn't it?
It does. And my friend Dan Lippett, he would photograph famous people. And that was the advice he gave me early on, which I think is what kind of made me think that way. If you bump into someone famous, do not ask them what everyone else asks them. They'll
Right.
walk right by you. If you want to get someone's attention, talk to them about something completely different, and then they will become invested in you.
Hmm.
And you know, to me, it's always just in the beginning. Like, what's the first thing you talk about? That can set the tone.
Yeah.
And so it's always trying to think of something that is a little unique. Because what if you find if you listen to people that have been interviewed a lot is they have certain tropes, right?
Right.
They have their if they're asked a question, it's 95% the same, almost word for word every single time. And I sometimes I figure out what those are and try and step on it in a way that they couldn't go down that path. Sometimes you'd be like, all right, that one got by me, but they answered how they answer. But sometimes you come at the question differently and stuff like that. That's part of the challenge too. It's what makes it fun as well to be able to when you're interviewing folks because you only got that hour. So it's
Yes.
like,
So yeah, I, similar to that, I ran into Bradley Whitford at I was at a play that was in Dallas, and they were a one-off of Up and Away, the Superman musical, right? And he was there, and I have just honestly I said, obviously I'm a fan of everything, but I loving you in The Good Guys, which is the show that was on Fox that actually was set in Dallas. And he smiled and he goes, "Thank you. We're having a lot of fun doing it." And I was like, okay, good. I didn't just say, "Hey, Josh Lyman," and moved on, right? Yeah.
I am rewatching The West Wing. He is so good. He's just one of those actors that like is always. So I was in New York. I come out of a play. I turn to my left, and I'm like, "Oh my God, Robert Wall!" And it's Robert Wall, our list
Yeah.
and all that. And he goes, "Arr." He was like, he had this hot date with him, and it was just,
Yeah.
I think he didn't want to be bothered. But I'm thinking to myself, this is decades after our list.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was like, not that he owed me anything, but it was like, it would have been nice. It's not like I went, oh, he's Robert. It was like a visceral reaction. Robert Wall.
Yeah.
And I always felt like I deserved a better reaction to
Hey. Yeah.
that. Yeah. It was more like, oh, I didn't want to be recognized. Yeah. Dude, I'm the only one.
Yeah, exactly.
Give me some credit. I need some credit here.
That's funny. That's great. Yeah, I love that the give and take where and so I think you do a good job of that on the ones I've sampled. And like I said, I'm going to do a deep dive on more because I really think you're going into some fun conversations with some people that I want to hear more about. So well done, Jeff.
Thank you. I
Yeah.
appreciate that. It's very nice.
What should I've asked you that I haven't?
You should have asked me my Venmo so everyone could send me money. No,
Yes,
I'm just kidding.
exactly. Right. Buy me a coffee is at this point. By the way, what I wanted to tell you is I am going through West Wing again. I am on season 3. I just decided a couple weeks ago that with all the political climate, and I live in Texas, which is a very red strawberry state, I'm a very lonely blueberry, that I needed West Wing again. So I'm going through it again, binging it and loving every minute.
We just finished season 1. Wow, what
Yeah.
an amazing end to that season. Wow.
Yes.
And it's I'm surprised more people don't talk about that. Like it's one
Yeah.
of the best season cliffhangers
Yeah.
ever. But yeah, it's great. I People say after season 4 it's not worth
Yeah.
it's when Aaron Sorkin left. But you let me know. Since you're charted ahead of me.
So I think season 5, they struggled to find their new voice. And then when they got Jimmy Smith's and being that was basically the legend is that Barack Obama was an earlier influence of that kind of character. And then him and Alan Alda, I think, gave us a fresh thought. And then I think 6 and 7 are very strong. I think 5, they struggle a little bit to find their voice again. But you lose somebody like Aaron Sorkin, that's hard to put a you lose your starting
That's a rough
quarterback.
one. Yeah, it
Yeah.
takes a minute to bounce back from that.
Yes. Good. So, anything I should have asked you that I haven't, Jeff?
No, I think you've been a fabulous host. I think we had one question about Mary.
Yes. Yes, I will. I will talk about that. Thank you. I was a little intimidated because you are such a good interviewer. So thank you. That's very kind of you to say. If you are a fan of Jeff's work and the podcast, thank you for checking us out. And I really appreciate it. I end every podcast with what I call the Mary question. What that is, Jay Armstrong, who was an honors English teacher in the Philadelphia area. He's now retired. But when he was teaching, he would give the lyrics to Thunder Road to every one of his honors English students. And they would, in the class, read it as if it was a poem. They would discuss it, talking about the imagery Bruce uses, the words Bruce uses, the theme he explores. And then he was asked his class, does Mary get in the car? So, Jeff, that is your question. Does Mary get in the car at the end of Thunder Road?
Let me first say, I've heard the song Thunder Road a million times. However, when you asked me that, I was like, I have no idea what he's talking about. And so I sit down and I listen. You can hear things, but this time I was listening, right?
Yes.
And I'm listening to Bruce and I'm reading the lyrics as he's singing them. And I realized I'm like, oh, this was really a deep question. So then I had to listen to it again. And my my gut was that yes, she does go with him because she had missed out on so many opportunities. And I think Bruce did probably a pretty good job of saying, look, we're getting near the end. We're not there yet. There's still time. I'm going to make it work. And I think she probably got in the car and decided she needed to make a change.
That is an excellent answer. Thank you so much. I am always happy, and just for a little bit, when he was on the phone on with me the first time, right? And he casually mentioned, yeah, on my English class, I give him the lyrics to Thunder Road and we talk about it. And I go, well, of course she gets in the car. He says, listen to the lyrics. And then when you listen to the lyrics, you go, oh, he says, Mary, climb in, but you don't get an answer. So, yeah, it's a fun way to end the podcast. It's my version of the actor's studio where he ends the same questions. So that's my shtick. And thank you for indulging me. If someone wants to reach you, how can they, and how can they find the podcast?
The easiest way to find the podcast is jeffisfunny.com. That'll redirect to classic-conversations.com, which is not as easy to remember as jeffisfunny.com, which was my old comedy website that I converted. So just easier than Jeff Dwoskin, which you can't spell. So jeffisfunny.com will get you there.
Okay.
And jeff@jeffisfunny.com is my email if anyone wants to reach out. My Venmo. No, I'm kidding. But yeah, so this is fun. This is really nice.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Everyone go check out the podcast, check out the website. There is someone on his guest list that you'll go, oh, yeah, I want to hear more of that. Whether it's Happy Days or the Monkees or it truly was like, oh, wow, this is wonderful. I'm going to be spending hours listening. So thank you, my friend.
Well, thank
Listeners,
you. I appreciate it. And leave a
yeah,
5-star review when you're done.
yes,
It's funny that you say the one thing I did learn is if someone goes, who's the most famous person that you've had on your show?
yeah.
I say, it depends on you.
That is a great answer. Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Too many times I've been like Ed Asner, Ed Begley Jr., and their eyes are glossing over. I go, Carol Baskin. You had Carol Baskin on your show from Tiger King? No way. Oh my God. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to go shoot myself. No, but she was actually delightful. She was a really
Yeah,
fun interview.
that's it. That sounds
Um,
fun.
but it's
And
just fun. It's just funny.
yeah,
So.
and please, thank you for that. I can't tell you, listeners, how much the reviews mean to us because in a lot of ways podcasting is a one-way conversation even when you're doing because you want the audience to give you feedback and you don't always get it. So it's always nice when I see a new 5-star review on wherever the podcast is and go, yes, someone's listening. So
Always good. Always
yeah.
good.
All
All
right.
right.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, listeners. Everyone, be safe, be kind, and we'll talk to you soon. Goodbye. There we go. Another episode. I'm about to go through a couple of things where you can reach me and give me feedback. So if you want to skip this, I understand. But I do hope you check it out every once in a while. I'm available on Twitter at Jesse Jackson DFW. The show is available at SetListingBruce. You can send me an email, setlistingbruce@gmail.com. You can send me a voicemail at 469-249-2442. I am currently doing a few other podcasts. Perfectly Good Podcast, John Hyatt from A to Z, where Sylvan Groth and I discuss every John Hyatt song in alphabetical order. My Babylon 5 podcast is Last Best Hope for Conversation, where Lou, Karen, and I discuss every episode of Babylon 5 in chronological order. I still am doing Next Stop Everywhere, the Doctor Who podcast with my brother in time, Charles Skaggs. And then finally, How Many Podcasts, the only podcast on the internet that counts, where my buddies and I discuss pop culture. You can go to our Patreon page and support the podcast for as little as $1 a month. You can go to our Facebook page, like, and please go to iTunes or wherever you get your podcast and leave a 5-star rating and review for all of the podcasts that I'm doing. It's okay if you don't listen to them, but if you subscribe and rate, it really will make my day better. Thank you, and I will talk to you soon. You just heard the fun talking, hard rocking, music loving, album ranking, fan thinking, joy spreading, lyric reading, story sharing podcast that is the one, the only Set Listing Bruce. The theme for Set Listing Bruce was written by David Rosen, used by permission.